This podcast is sponsored by BCH. BCH have been providing flats-specific reinstatement cost assessments for almost 20 years, with the building's insurance premium often contributing to a large portion of a service charge. BCH can provide specialist, third-party, unbiased, RICS-compliant reinstatement cost assessments, allowing the managing agent maximum compliance and best practice and the placement of the most competitive buildings insurance. Their commitment to accessible, prompt and accurate buildings insurance valuations has seen BCH secure the best first step in buildings insurance for over 600,000 flat owners. For a quote, please contact info@bch.uk.com today.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond Four Walls, the podcast where we delve into the stories and strategies that transcend traditional boundaries and inspire change. I'm your host, Jodie Fraser, and today I have a wonderful guest joining me. I'm honoured to welcome Sara Dillon, the dedicated training manager at the Hollie Gazzard Trust. Sara has been instrumental in driving forward the Trust's mission to promote awareness and education around domestic abuse, coercive control, and the importance of personal safety. With her extensive experience and passion for empowering individuals, Sara offers invaluable insights into the transformative work being done to create safer communities. I'm excited to share with you about Sara's journey and the remarkable initiatives at the Hollie Gazzard Trust that are making a real difference. Whether you're interested in personal safety, training, or simply seeking inspiration, this conversation promises to go beyond the conventional and into the heart of impactful change. Welcome, Sara. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you, Jodie. Thank you for such an amazing introduction, and thanks for having me and the Trust on the podcast this morning. Yeah, we're honoured to be here.
Oh, so can you just start by telling me a little bit about your role as training manager?
Yeah, sure. So I was brought in a couple of years ago to develop the training and to increase the amount of training that we can offer. So there was already training in place and a really good range of sessions that were available through the Trust. And I think what Nick wanted was to bring in someone who had experience of delivering material for a living. So my previous job was as a teacher at secondary school level. And he wanted someone who had an awareness and understanding of the educational sector to be able to enhance the training there. And what's happened, I think, since I've started is that we've done exactly that. We've increased the number of schools, colleges, universities that are aware of us. We've increased the number of bookings. Our reach has kind of grown nationwide more than it ever has been. And we also now do lots of work within the business community and also within voluntary sector, working alongside other charities. So it's kind of grown beyond probably anything that we imagined it would done in the last couple of years, I think.
Yeah, and it's incredible what you do, Sarah. Well, all of you, it completely inspires me. And one of the reasons why I reached out to Nick in the first place, for 3 years ago now, I think 4 years ago, was because of the work that you do with businesses and the Hollie Guard app and everything. So firstly, what inspired you to join the Trust? What was it that took you from teaching to come and work for a charity?
So I've known Nick for a very long time. We actually had pretty much our first jobs together a long time ago, back in the 1980s. So having known Nick and his family, and obviously that also means that I knew Hollie for a very long time. I've always followed the Trust. Obviously, when Hollie was killed, it impacted me on a personal level. I felt that very keenly, and have always then continued to follow the work of the Trust, support the Trust. I made the decision to come away from a long teaching career, just needed a change of scene for myself, really, not knowing what that would bring. So Nick heard that I had left teaching. He heard that I was looking for a post, contacted me, asked me if I'd like to have a cup of tea and a chat, and I kind of came away with a job. So
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history. And I think because of that personal connection, because of how I feel about the work that Nick had been doing for so long, it was an absolute certainty for me that I was making the right choice when I decided to join the Trust. And it's a privilege for me to now do what I do in Hollie's name on behalf of the Trust, and to work alongside Nick, who is inspirational within the field and somebody who's so well respected that it's been an amazing sort of journey for the last couple of years since I started.
And you're doing incredible things with schools, but can you talk to me a little bit about the business side then?
Yes.
So Active Bystander, is that something that you deliver to businesses?
Yes, we do, absolutely. So we have a programme which was originally underwritten and devised by a company called Kindling Transformations, and it's Active Bystander, with a focus really on challenging sexual harassment, which we know obviously is really important in terms of the workplace. It can go beyond that, and the skills that we teach and the conversations we have really are about addressing any behaviour. Our focus is around sexual harassment, obviously, because we our field of expertise is around reducing violence against women and girls in particular. But I think the skills that you learn as an active bystander can be applied to any situation or any challenging behaviour. And so the workshops that we offer in the workplace are about what it is to be an active bystander. We talk about some of the issues that might arise. We talk about why it's so important to challenge what we might sometimes consider to be low level or kind of everyday commonplace behaviours. So, for example, if we're talking about sexual harassment, we might talk about those sexualised comments, the unsolicited touch, which is sometimes done perhaps without really meaning to, but is still something that's potentially problematic. We talk about why sometimes we hold back, so sometimes we're fearful or concerned about intervening, and there are many, many reasons why people don't intervene when they do see challenging behaviour. And then we talk about some really safe, non-confrontational ways in which we can start to address that behaviour. And that might be in the workplace, but obviously those skills then transfer to beyond as well. So it's about kind of being safer workplaces, and also being about quite community minded, I think, when we're talking about being active bystanders.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, there's that line, isn't it? And everyone's line is different as well. So it's very hard to give a guidebook, if you like, of what you can and can't say or can and can't do. And it must be really tricky sometimes, because, what is acceptable to somebody and they just see as banter really isn't acceptable to somebody else, or the touch of the arm, or the hand on the back, or that sort of thing. It can make some people feel incredibly uncomfortable, but some people are fine with it. So but I suppose with active bystander, it's about checking in with that person that you see it happening to. Are you okay with that? Do you need any support?
Yeah, very much so. So it's not about taking control. It is about exactly what you've just said. It's about checking in a lot of the time, or just about creating a little buffer for the person on the receiving end of the behaviour. So it's not about confronting the perpetrator necessarily. Sometimes we do talk about that. I'll go on to that in a moment. But actually, if you can create a distraction or an interruption when there is a pattern of behaviour that you can see kind of unfolding, and you might notice that the person on the receiving end is uncomfortable, you might not be sure, but actually just creating a little distraction or an interruption can provide that respite or that buffer to that individual, give them an opportunity to perhaps move away or redirect the conversation if they need to. And then I think it's important to know that after the event, the check-in can be really, really powerful. So, you may have witnessed something, you may have done something to intervene, asking for directions, asking for the time, asking about a file in the office. Mm-hmm. And then actually what you can do, as well as in the moment, breaking that pattern of behaviour, you can check in. You can ask the person that was receiving the unwanted behaviour if they're okay. Would they like your support in reporting something? Do they need to talk about it? But sometimes you can check in with the perpetrator as well. So the person who's demonstrating that unwanted behaviour, and you might be able to just say, look, I was quite surprised to notice or to hear whatever it is that's happened. Are you okay? Can we talk about that? Maybe you haven't understood that could be problematic for someone. So I think there are loads of opportunities to be able to intervene. And I think in the workplace it can be really hard. I think it can be really tough to challenge our peers and our colleagues. But I think the way that we deliver the sessions really highlights how important that is, and how those seemingly small behaviours for some people can be very deep rooted, but actually can in some cases lead on to more concerning behaviours. And so it's important that we do address those. We all take that responsibility upon ourselves to start those conversations where we can. And if we don't feel comfortable, we also talk about the opportunity to ask for some help. So we don't have to do it all ourselves. We can always be an active bystander by raising that concern with someone else. So many options for us to be able to be that supportive person if we're needed to.
Yeah, I think that, that's really insightful, especially I know that there's a new law come in, hasn't there, for, is it schools and colleges or those within higher education, that you have to have sexual harassment training. So, that's going to be a game changer, really.
I hope so.
And hopefully, you can get the word out there and do this incredible training that you do. In terms then of, there's another training course that you offer, Working Without Fear, which I've always been really interested to know more about, actually. Just how does that work? What does it do? And how does it apply? So say you went into a property management company like I am, how would you deliver that to property managers?
So the Working Without Fear is quite an intensive training program. It's a day-long training program which covers lots and lots of different material. The crux of it is looking at how domestic abuse and stalking, so if somebody within your organisation is experiencing either of those behaviours in their personal life, it will almost certainly, without question, be affecting their work life too. And it's about how to start to recognise some of those behaviours, to see the signs perhaps, to be aware of what might be going on within your workplace. And then we give guidance on policies and procedures, really. So ways to support, ways to deal with the disclosure, things to take into account in terms of an employee's safety. So steps you might take to offer them that sort of level of support or guidance. So again, the app, which we can talk about in a moment if needs be, is another tool that we can then provide. So as well as understanding and knowledge, we've got practical tools that we can then support a company with. We've got a range of policies that we can provide templates to an employer if they feel that they've got anything that is missing from within their own policies. We've got expertise within the team where we can offer guidance and support in terms of making sure that there's an audit or a check on those policies to ensure that there's support moving forward. So the training itself is a day long, but obviously there's opportunity then for us to build a bigger relationship with an organisation in terms of that more supportive route through.
Yeah, it's something that I certainly would like to do within my industry, and not necessarily just within my company, but sort of industry wide, is to create something alongside yourselves where you can take the Working Without Fear model that you've created in terms of, if somebody is in a domestic abuse relationship, but moving that into the professional sector whereby, there's a problem with an abusive client or an abusive leaseholder or abusive resident tenant contractor even. Yeah. Contractors a little bit easier because you just stop using them. But at the same time, there's all of these different relationships that we as property managers have to handle. And it's certainly something that, in the future, I'd like to maybe work with you and then bring something into the property industry that will help us to deal with that sort of behaviour. And again, through policies and procedures, how like the Property Institute, for example, or RICS can bring everything into sort of one place and just be like, look, if you use this policy and this procedure and that sort of thing, just to help certainly the younger property managers as well, who are, maybe early 20s, they've just come out of uni and they're going through a graduate program or something like that, but they are then struggling to deal with some of the abuse that we get It might be quite nice if we could, team up and maybe
absolutely.
create some kind of training around that.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would say about the trust and about the team here is that because of the kind of range of experiences we have, we're pretty good at making adaptations, creating bespoke packages. So, if somebody comes to me and says, well, so I recently did some work with the YMCA, local YMCA. They wanted the training around domestic abuse awareness, but they have very specific needs and very specific client needs that they wanted us to be mindful of and to incorporate into that training. And so we were able to use what we know with some research, conversation with them, because obviously they are their experts. And so you use the people that can give you the information. And then we were able to tailor that training to work for them. And it was so well received by them in terms of the fact that it had been very clearly made for that purpose. And so we're quite agile, we're quite flexible. We do like to meet the need of the people that contact us. By the same token, you mentioned earlier about the active bystander training at university level. That's now become mandatory, as you quite rightly said. And students now are expected to have that training alongside staff. Staff need to be aware also. That's a massive undertaking for a university. And we were already ready for them, if you like. We were on the front foot. We knew this was coming. We've looked at what's expected. There are some changes that we've need to made to our provision to ensure we've included everything that's now mandatory. But that's good to go. And I think the one thing that Nick's always done is really been up to date with the changes in the workforce, the changes in expectations. He's probably been sort of responsible in some respects in driving some of those things through awareness and the campaigns and the discussions that he has on lots and lots of different levels. And so I think absolutely, when the time's right for you, and you think, well, is this now something that we can work on? It will be something we can look at with you and bring. It's a combination of some of the different kind of options that we have. What you're asking for, I think, is some active bystander with some working without fear, kind of bringing them together and then making them fit for your industry, so that they are kind of really bespoke. So yeah, absolutely. And I love doing things like that because it gives me a chance to create something new and to really sort of look into things.
Yeah, it's exciting. And at the same time, you could probably bring in a little bit of the reframing masculinity stuff that you do. I know that's specifically for schools, boys in, is it age sort of 13, 14, that sort of age that you target?
Yeah, a little bit older. Yeah, around 14 up. At the moment, we've delivered that within school settings, college and university settings. So it is really aimed at young men, but I think it could be, it could absolutely work with an older cohort as well. But it's about addressing some of those pressures that young men are under, addressing some of the influences that they're under, which can be harmful to them, but then can lead to harmful behaviours to those around them. And obviously, from our point of view, that is also the women and girls that we look to protect. It's a great programme, really interesting to have those discussions. I've done lots of work this week with 2 different groups of young men. Really insightful, lots of light bulb moments go off, I think, in terms of how they're manipulated or driven to feel and look at life in a certain way. And actually, when you start to unpick it, they really don't believe everything that they're fed through social media, maybe the influences that we are more and more concerned by. But they are young men who are likely to receive that information at a level that can be problematic for them and for others. So yeah, it's a great programme to be part of and something that I'm keen to build more and more in terms of the reach that we have with that one. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely a great way to stop the next generation coming up from being the next Andrew Tate of the world, and because nobody wants that, really, do they? So
no, absolutely. And I think the reason we do so much, at an educational level, is that exactly that. We want the young people that we talk to have an understanding. The school curriculum is great, it's broad, but it doesn't always cover everything. And actually bringing in someone else to have those conversations, particularly when we're talking about young people, can be more impactful. I know as a secondary school teacher, you see the same children every day and you almost become part of the wallpaper, not quite, but they're not always taking everything kind of as serious as you might want. And so having a new face, a different voice, everything we talk about is underpinned by Hollie's story, and we're very mindful of that and very respectful of Hollie, but we do talk about Hollie to really ensure that they understand where we come from and why we do what we do. And so you're right, young people are absolutely crucial in terms of making those changes in society moving forward.
Yeah, because you want to, from my perspective, I'm really passionate about creating these safe workspaces and making sure men and women feel safe doing their job, particularly the jobs that we do, to try and get those young men, as you say, at 14, 15, before they start to think about their career options and that sort of thing, because, property is a very male-dominated sector. It's getting better. There is a lot of women coming through, which is amazing, but at the same time, it does sometimes feel like, you've still got those old-fashioned values and thought processes and that sort of thing, and I just... we need to stamp that out. And it might take 20 years, but you've got to start somewhere, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things we do is really unpick kind of some of those, I'll use the word traditional, I suppose, ingrained maybe is a better word, stereotypical expectations of men and women, how we're viewed. And we unpick that with them and we think about the implications of that, and we think about how harmful it can be to both, to all genders, to anybody, whether you're male, female, identifying as male, identifying as female. There are stereotypes out there that can be so damaging in terms of how we see each other and then how we see ourselves. So we do lots of work talking about those things to try and unpick that with them. And I've yet to find a group who haven't been responsive to that, who haven't really wanted to engage with it. And every single time I kind of come to the end of the sessions, the young men are really open in the fact that they've never had those opportunities before to have those conversations. And it's heartening to have those moments with them where you can feel they've really been able to open up in a way that they wouldn't normally do so.
It must be confusing for them in some ways as well, though, because they're being fed certain information via social media, and then they might have a parent, for example, who's very, well, this is what a man does and this is what a man says and blah, 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 blah. Or even a very, dominant female who it's like kind of my way or the highway, and they're very sensitive, and they don't actually sort of deep down feel like this is right. But if their parents are telling them that it's okay and social media is telling them it's okay, then they must be so confused, and then add hormones flying around here, there and everywhere. It must be really tricky for them, bless them.
Yeah, I think sometimes, it's very easy, I think, to mistakenly vilify certain parts of society, and there will be some people we will never change, and there will be some people for whom those attitudes are so ingrained that we can try, and we will try, and we will continue to do the work we do. But actually, what I tend to feel when I come away from any of the workshops I do is that the young men that I'm working with, or men, let's talk about the workplace as well, are so responsive, so receptive. I like to feel that they feel empowered to perhaps push back against some of those behaviours that they maybe felt they had to engage with or were expected of them. You're right, there's lots of different things to take into account, because it might be our family background, it might be personal experiences that we've been through, there may be cultural expectations. So it's not an easy navigate when you're in a room, and remember, I'm sat in a room maybe with 10 people, each one of those will bring their own ideas and agendas and expectations and experience to the table. And so we talk really carefully beforehand about recognizing each other's right to have a voice, but also recognizing our right to challenge each other should we need to. And there are challenges, there are conversations that can be quite tricky to kind of navigate. But if you're frightened of having those conversations, you'll never bring about change. If you have a go, you may or may not. But it's the attempt, I think, that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think it's incredible I really do. I know I've said that about 3 times now, but I do. I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah,
are there
me
any
too.
particular success stories that you're, obviously without naming anyone, but any particular success stories with any of the training programs that you're particularly proud of?
I think every single training program that we offer has its value. Every single training program that we offer has its positive feedback, and we try and share testimonials. We try and share messages because we know that it's all about the ratings and it's about the 5-star reviews, and that's not exactly how we operate. But we do know that when we get great feedback, it's important for us to share that because then we know that other people will see and hear. For me, it's the conversations I often have after a session. So it might be a moment in a session where the penny will drop or they will realize something. But actually, often I have conversations afterwards where people will come up to me, and this may be adults, it may be young people, depending on the setting, and they will say, "This is me. I've experienced some of these things. I hadn't realised." So, for example, and when we're talking about domestic abuse and coercive and controlling behaviour, I don't even know how many times this has happened now. It's more than I can count. I will have people come up to me at the end of a session and say, "I've just realised that this is me." Or during this session, you've laid it out, and seeing it and hearing it through your voice or seeing it in black and white has shown me that actually there are some risks here for me, and I need to make some decisions. And we are not a support service, so we don't have a client base. We don't offer that. We are about the awareness and the training. We're about showing people what these things look like. And I think for me, when someone sees it through our eyes and then recognises it and can then start to think about their own safety and well-being or how they want to navigate that situation they're in, that's incredible and really powerful.
Yeah.
And again, I get feedback sometimes. We work with some groups who are, other charities or groups that run women's support groups. And more often than not, after I've done a session, they will reach out and say, "Okay, a couple of our clients have come forward, a couple of our service users have spoken to us today. You have allowed them to recognise something." So there are many, many success stories, I guess, in terms of the impact that we have. It's rare. It's rare that we're not out and about and we don't meet someone who tells us something positive about the impact of the trust.
Yeah. Well, I think, the Trust's mission was to stop what happened to Hollie happening
Yes.
again. And you're changing lives, all of you. It's just incredible. Are there any future initiatives or training courses that are in the pipeline that you're working on that you're happy to share?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a few in the pipeline. So we're looking at working with a local provider of personal safety. And we believe that our active bystander training, which is about how you step up on behalf of someone, marries really nicely with how you then look after yourself should you ever find yourself in a difficult situation. Because, as much as we might like to think we'd only ever be a bystander, there will be times when that behaviour is addressed towards us. We're looking at working with a company who provides safeguarding consultancy. They do lots of work in the higher education sector, not solely there, but that's one of their areas of expertise. And with the new mandatory training involved or being required, we're now looking at how we can develop something with them. I'm currently working with a couple of universities around initiation and hazing. So, particularly within sporting societies, clubs or groups, there can be an expectation to engage in some behaviours that can be really dangerous and harmful. And so we're looking at our bystander programme and incorporating some more specific training into that. So when I talked earlier about us being able to be quite agile and offer more bespoke training, these are examples of where we're seeing a need or a need is being brought to us, someone's asking us if we can help, we are then looking to adapt and develop what we've already got in place to make it relevant to those areas. So there's lots going on, actually, all sorts of things. Lots of people reach out to us to ask us to become involved in projects, and where we can, we will absolutely do what we can to be able to meet those needs.
Yeah, amazing. And you're writing a chapter in a book, is that right?
Yes, I am. We've been asked to contribute to a handbook around violence against women and girls, and I've been asked to write a chapter based on our educational work and some of the things that the trust does in terms of training. So that's, there's a deadline for that, which I'm acutely aware of and very busily, desperately trying to kind of get going with that. It's, I've got the plans, I know what I want to talk about, but, if anybody ever sees us on social media, they will see how busy we are. And this is a rare day in the office for me, to be fair. So, but yeah, really exciting. And it's a real honour, actually, to have been asked to produce this chapter. It will be an academic publication, so it'll be available as a physical copy, but also an online copy. And again, we know that means our reach will go far wider than we maybe would have done without that, because it will be used worldwide in academia. So yeah, it's a real honour, a real privilege to be able to be a part of something like that.
As you say, it gives you that proud moment as well, isn't it? Of and for the trust as well, and for Nick, of everything that's been achieved over the last 11 years, all the stuff that you're now creating. You still hear these things in the media that things are happening, and it must be hard for you as a team, your whole industry wide, to think, oh, are we making a difference? But you really are. Must be really, really tricky to keep going when you hear things that are still happening.
The world is ever changing, and I agree, things aren't necessarily improving at this point. But I think we are a tiny, tiny part of an enormous push towards the kind of areas that we work in. And I think that every single time you have a conversation, every single time you're in a room and you feel, and it's tangible when you're in a room, you feel the impact that you're having, I think that you will be making a difference on a level. And it might not be everybody in the country, it might not be everybody in the world, but we have to recognise and sort of, I guess, feel proud, absolutely feel proud, but also be grateful for the opportunities to be able to make those differences where we can.
Yeah.
And I know everybody in the sector would, I guess, feel that, you have to do these things step by step. If we could all press the button and change the world, we would. We know that's not going to happen. And so we all do what we can in the places that we can. And there's plenty of people that are pushing for that improvement.
As I said earlier, if you can help just one person in that room and they come up to you and say, do you know what, I've realised that I'm in that situation, and they get out of that situation.
Yeah.
To be able to help that one person, it brings those awful statistics down, and, we are protecting the Hollies of the future. So
yeah, and also arming them for their futures. Whoever you are, we know statistically that many of us will be impacted either because we will be a victim of domestic abuse, or we may know somebody that is experiencing it. The fact that it can happen to anybody, and the fact that we talk to anybody and everybody that will listen to us, I think means that we are informing people for the future. It's not just about catching those people now that may be experiencing it. It's about giving that knowledge base and that awareness, so that should you find yourself in a relationship that isn't feeling quite right, you've got something, you've got a point of reference. You can go back and think, I do remember these, the conversations we had. I remember that training. These probably are some of the signs that this is unhealthy. And it may just help people moving forward to make their choices about whether they stay involved in that relationship.
Oh, brilliant. And before I let you go, and thank you for your time, is there anything you'd like to share about the importance, ultimately, of the work that you do?
It's about recognising within society we are going to all come up against issues. There will be problems for us. We'd be lucky to get through life completely unscathed. And that might just be that we witness something, and it may be that we are the recipient of some unwanted behaviour. But I guess it's about recognizing the importance. For us, it's just about trying to provide that protection for people, trying to provide that awareness, trying to leave people in a position when we walk out of the room where they're better prepared should they ever find themselves in a difficult position, or witnessing it on someone else's behalf. So yeah, our mission is all about really safety, awareness, and protecting, and kind of, again, looking out for, when we talk about young people, our future, isn't it? We're talking about a world where perhaps some of these things are less likely to happen.
Yeah, and coming from I know you can't speak myself now. Coming from a parent of a 5-year-old daughter, the work that you do will change her life. And I know that, and it's making me quite emotional thinking about it, actually. Yeah. But yeah, is there anything else you'd like to share before I let you go?
No, just thank you, really. Thank you to you for hosting and for allowing us to talk, or allowing me to talk a bit about what we do. Thank you to anybody that already follows us, and hopefully anybody that listens to your podcast that isn't aware of us will take the opportunity to have a look at the Hollie Gazzard Trust. We're really easy to find online. And yeah, think about how we may be able to get involved either within your business or how you might support us as a charity. Yeah. We're solely self-funded. We work really, really hard to be able to keep this going. And so for us, the opportunity to come on here gives us another way of allowing others to see what we can do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you to the Trust for everything that you do. And appreciate your time, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jodie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my latest podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. The links are in the show notes. Or you can contact me on jodie@jodiefraser.com. For more content and updates, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favourite platforms. Thank you once again for listening. Until next time, take care.